suddenly changed pace through the centre. It's Bergkamp. That's magnificent. The move, and then this, which left Dabby's ass totally stranded.
Hello and welcome to Bergkamp Wonderland. This is the 20th episode of the Predictions League, and we have ABW royalty in the thing. I've put in brackets ABW legend. It's the one and only Mr. Fyffey, the much loved man who taught us all about amortization, and none of us remember a single bit of how it works. How you doing, Treacle?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for having me back and for your patience over the years. It's been. I feel like Arsene Wenger when he turned up at the Emirates the other day. Obviously, I'm not comparing myself to that legend kind of status, but it's been several years out in the wilderness. But I'm finally home to Big Papa Danny.
And do you think we can persuade you to come on maybe every now and then and do a couple of football pods with us?
Don't take the piss, mate. Maybe. So, now I've got some internet stability, not like when I used to live in Islington, and it was pretty much impossible. And I used to pull that one strand of hair out every time trying to get me to have better audio. Paying for me to connect into my Wi-Fi box, but yeah, I'm a stable man now.
So what have you been doing for the last few years then, since people have last seen you on ABW? If you had to summarise it in a sentence.
Procreating. So I've got a little boy, fully grown up. I've long broke free from my old days. I've developed some wisdom, lost a little bit of hair, put on some weight, got married, started buying wine, and become boring. But that's me. But how about you, Danny? How have you been?
Yeah, I'm good. Fatter, older, slower, a little bit more achier, a little bit less ability to put up with people's nonsense, but still moaning at everybody in the WhatsApp groups for not to. But I don't moan about people's video or audio quality now, because all of them have a perfect audio and video. So it's only and we had our 10th anniversary last week, a couple of weeks ago. 10 years we've been doing this nonsense, and none of us still know what we're doing.
Ah, fantastic news. Where was the invite to the anniversary party?
Didn't do one. We didn't have anything. I've still not met any. The only ones I've met that have done pod with, I've met Mike from America. I've met Jeff from Canada. And
Mike Finey.
Yeah, that's it. I met him. They're the only two I've ever met, I think. Oh, and then went to a game and I met Femi and Carl, and that's it. And some of them only live 2 or 3 hours away. They just don't care, 5 feet. It's not like the old days where we all cared for each other. These lot vagabonds, and that's the nicest thing I can say about them.
I walked past Chimp the other day in the financial district. Gave each other a quick
what was he doing?
Wave, and then
was he going through the bins looking for used sausage rolls?
Maybe flinging shit, and no, he's doing well. But yeah, I haven't seen many of the guys lately, but still catch up with Jason obviously quite often, and from time to time meet with him, and I think Simon probably second most, met a few times lately. But apart from that, Chris comes up for his once a year annual trip up. I think
that's it.
Went to the cheap hotel room somewhere dodgy with Jason. Immediately regrets it, puts it to the back of his mind, and then 1 year later, here we go, bingo bango.
It is, and Mr. Collins is currently down in Australia, and he met up with Dom.
Amazing.
Did you see the photos?
I did. 2 of the most handsome men out in Sydney. Just as well Simon's wife was there to regulate the situation, otherwise that could have been out of control.
But those two, there was not a single woman within a mile of those two not swooning at the thought of those two goddesses getting their tops off and just strolling around and just being fabulous, which I'm sure they both are. And we've got some people in the chat. Jim Eves is there. Phil Macker is there.
Wow.
You can't believe that me and Chris haven't been out on the pool. Dear. Oh dear, that's a horrid thought. I'll be taking over by aliens. I think aliens are indeed coming. They will come, they will look, they will observe, and they will go, these human race are an absolute disgrace. We're going to wipe them out before they infect the rest of the universe. That is the only logical thing they can do, because human race, quite frankly, are, especially the top echelons of the human race, they are a mess.
Do you reckon they created COVID? Is that a conspiracy we could start here?
Aliens?
Yeah, maybe they observed us, created it to try and wipe us out.
Well, if they did try, they didn't do a good enough job. and there might be a second version coming out. So if they can, second time lucky even, but yeah, just let the cats run the world. It'd be a lot easier. Should we get on and talk a little bit of football?
Yeah, maybe we should speed things up for the crew who are waiting patiently.
Yes.
So we had live guests. Hey guys, thanks for joining. Okay. Sorry for my disappointing you with my lack of football knowledge, but let's go.
Right, so we just want to make sure that your name is Fyffey and it's PR_who, then the letter R and the letter U, and you have that stamped somewhere on your body and on your passport.
Exactly.
You are an actual ABW legend.
I mean, that is a very strong term. I mean, I'm sub 50 appearances, but I will take it for the amortization education. I feel like that. Yeah, I was definitely talking about that before that became a trendy term. Yes. People don't seem to care about it anymore now that we're pretty flush. But I will take it.
Now that FFP has been buried in a shallow grave somewhere, no one really cares about it. So, Who are you going to go for Premier League champions?
See, I'm going to go for Arsenal. I know it's not original because I can see you've got a few there, but definitely it's got to be Arsenal for me.
Good. What other people that you might know? Femi went Man City, and then who else do you know on here? Carl went for Man City, and who else is there? Gav from She-War, he went Arsenal along with you and me. So you're in some good company there. So obviously Arsenal are going to finish first. So that next question I don't have to ask.
I reckon the reason Carl's gone for Man City is because he knows that Arsenal use the public underground to get to and from games. But I'll leave that one with him.
Terrible. I mean, are you over the trauma of those? How many years? I've lost track of how many years it has been ruining your journey to work.
But why do you think I'm working from home today? The whole bloody network's been on strike again. But yeah, as he's mentioned, sausage rolls.
I've got a little thing here. There he is, top right hand corner.
Oh, there he is.
He's giving you a look.
That player. Love it. All in white.
So who are you going to, Arsenal's top goal scorer, all competitions, what are you going for?
Going Saka. I was thinking Jesus, but then I saw he's injured again already, and I thought, here we go. So it's got to be Saka.
Why are you picking Saka?
Well, actually, penalty taker for one.
Yeah.
Does he take corner? Well, he's not really. He's our most dangerous threat. Martinelli's another one, but I think that Martinelli might be rotated more often this season with Trossard. And Arteta just doesn't give Saka a break whatsoever. He's pretty indestructible. He's going to play off of, the main striker. We know whether it's whether it's Havertz or Jesus, he's going to like to play a bit of a false nine in that middle, for the front three. It's going to create space for Saka at the back post. So for me, it's either him or Martinelli, but I think he's going to be rested less so, and he's less likely to break down than Martinelli as well.
What would you put as the reason for why we fell apart at the end of last season?
I think it's an interesting one. I'd say a couple of factors. Obviously, Jesus' injury, it probably didn't impact us. When you look at when he was out, of course, we maintained a very good set of results. When he came back in, it still took him a little time to find his scoring again, but I think he slotted in pretty well. The real issue, I think, for me was Saliba and taking Saliba out of the team. Obviously, he didn't really need to. He didn't really obviously need to play in that home game against Sporting Lisbon. You could argue that Kiwior was pretty shit in his first game at Lisbon away, right? And don't get me wrong, I think he's going to come good, but he really had a pretty awful game to the point where it must have been a bit of a concern for Arteta starting him in the home leg. So he overcompensated, played Saliba, his back went, and then he was out for the rest of the season. And I just think the way in which his progression, with the ball, there was a couple of games, for example, where Holding was in centre back, and I'm not going to put it all entirely on Holding, right? We should have had better cover in that position. But just watching, Holding in centre back playing it, right to Ben White when White was literally stood, laterally across from him, a pretty equal length up the pitch, and then White then just punched the ball up because he's trying to get rid of the pressure. And for me, that kind of summarised a little bit of the game mentality that Holding has, which is that kind of let's get rid of the pressure with centre backs. That's not where Saliba would have driven the ball at least 10, 15, 20 metres forward, enabling us to press further up the pitch, attack teams more aggressively, but also defend more aggressively from a higher, base. And so I think when he left, when he dropped out of the team, that was just the whole game kind of really fell apart for me. And so that would be the one concern. Can Timber, deputise there? Can Ben White now deputise there and put Timber right? We'll have to see. But I think that was for me the biggest issue. How about you? And I'm sure you probably explain your on every podcast. But what was the reason for you we fell apart?
Exactly the same thing. Yeah, we had he's more than. I mean, we saw when he was playing on loan in France, the number of passes that he did. I was watching every week and going, God, Saliba's doing 100+ passes from centre back, and we were used to having centre backs that would only do the thing they do with the ball would be to lob it anywhere or short passes and backwards and forwards from each other. And then Saliba would be not only 100 passes, we'd have like 90% pass success rate. And so it is almost like having a what was it? Is between, I think it's called an anchor position between midfield and the defence. Oh, we got is that Ryan Reynolds? It's
there is a genuine ABW legend.
He is, and I got
not
a little
imposter like me.
I got a there he is. Put him in the corner. Look at that. He's handsome, but he's coming on. He'll be on Sunday.
About bloody time.
Yes. So lovely. I was saying that it is when you have a player that is that good and can do that amount of stuff and is that creative with the ball at centre back, it's almost like having the anchor position, which is like a really good passing defensive midfielder when he comes out of. Sol Campbell used to do a little bit of that, get the ball and out of defence. And it's to have a player like that in our team at that age. He is probably, for me, one of the best centre back prospects on the planet at the moment. You've got the young man that is it Bayern Munich or Barcelona? It's one of those teams. The Dutch lad, De Jong. Okay, there's always a few of them. I get them mixed up, but magnificent.
It is the centre back with De Jong's centre. Yeah, he brings defensive solidarity and calmness to the defence, which is fantastic, right? Because Margelas is brilliant, but you remember like the Mitrovic era at Fulham at home and. A few, he's always a flashpoint away from a red card, right? Or someone we've seen in pre-season you can get in behind him quite easily. Saliba really calms that defense. He brings a surety and a confidence. But again, for me, it's really that build-up player, right? He's so much more than a defender. Like the attack starts with him, and it also again it allows us to defend so much higher up the pitch because we're pressing up the pitch in ways that we don't because we have that confidence in him to almost hold the line. So keeping him fit is a must, but I think we have slightly better options. Bringing in Timber, it allows us that versatility to either look at Timber or even transferring Ben White back into that position. Ben, let's not forget, was fantastic, not just last season, but his first year as well, the year before that. So let's see.
Like you were saying, the ability to push up and then more importantly be able to get back because Holding, bless him, I love Bob Holding, but he hasn't got the speed to get back. And then you look at Saliba, he is like an absolute whippet when he gets back.
Oh, he's rapid.
And so he is a nightmare. I mean, he could play defensive midfielder, he could play in the anchor. I mean, he could probably play in central midfielder with his passing ability and his tackling ability. He is a generational talent, and we are lucky at the moment at the club. We have got 5 or 6 generational talents at the club.
I was reading a good article about Saliba the other day. I think it was in The Athletic. They did a big write-up on him, and they were saying until at the age of 14, he was playing as a striker in the youth team in France. And incredible to think that, someone has been able to transit, because 14 is quite a late age to transition into. I know you always hear about players that change here and there, but from striker to centre-back, it's fundamentally a transformational shift in the game.
Yeah.
And, it's only like you think about it, 8 years later, he's captaining Saint-Etienne, joining Arsenal, going back to Marseille, playing out of his skin, like without having actually that number of years to master the game or being developed and like whatever. So I think, we're still going to see more levels to his game at Arsenal with, continued coaching, the better players around him, that kind of getting the back four in place and having a bit more stability in the back four and, having, the same players next to him each game. I think that will really help. But yeah, no, absolutely love him. Last year, I remember the game when we lost at Man City away as well, 4-1. And, listen, we'd all be ragged somewhat rotten by Haaland, don't get me wrong. But, Haaland literally treated Holding like he was, a youth team player, right? The way he just dominated him. And then when he went and scored, Holding, that is, towards the end of the game, when he turned around after scoring and winked at one of the City players as to say, have a bit of that. I just, for me, that was the summarization of the end of our season and the capitulation, the mentality to think, we're arrogant enough to give them a wink after they just spanked 4 past us. But listen, I like Holding. I'm not going to draw him out as the reason we didn't win the league. But I think losing Saliba was definitely the turning point. And it's a shame, right? Because if Kiwior was more impressive in that Sporting game, I think there's every reason or every chance he would have started against Lisbon at home, or every chance he would have been in that centre-back role and Saliba. But listen, if only my auntie had bollocks, etc., right? So, but let's see, fingers crossed to it. As ever, Arsenal praying for an injury-free season, but I think with the backups and with the investment, we've been phenomenal in the transfer window so far. So it's not like the old Wenger era when we were praying that one player wouldn't get injured, and invariably they did. So we have genuine squad depth and quality now.
And doing all of our transfer business in the last hour on transfer deadline day. I mean, we used to get great
I'll
shows,
still be
but not
fuming,
anymore.
even though we've been super efficient this window. I'll be fuming if we don't end up with some Chelsea B team player on loan on the last day, just for nostalgic reasons, and we can all celebrate. But no, do you know what? This transfer window, obviously, you could say Arsenal predicting them coming top is a little bit churlish, given obviously City are amazing, but. Look, if you look at City's window, what's happening with their squad, clearly, we know they're going to make more investment than they have. But there's quite a lot of disruption to their team, right? Gundogan going, potentially Bernardo, changes potentially coming into the central defence. We'll see. Whereas we've had a pretty stable window, and sure, we're going to see outflow. But I don't expect any of our first starting 11 to leave, and you think about Gundogan, he was literally central to that, well, the treble for them last year, right? Yeah. He was everything, or quadruple, sorry. But you look at ours and really, do you see any one of our top first 11 being allowed to leave unless an absolute monster of a bid comes in? I can't see it. I think we're very stable. We're adding depth and quality, and we're growing. Whereas City, okay, it's not turbulence in that sense. There's nothing too extreme, but there's enough of a change that it could impact them, right? And so that's why I'd go for Arsenal. Obviously, there's a little bit of tainted bias in there, and I'm sure 95% of neutrals would disagree. But when you're in the stadium, and not even just in the stadium, right? We have a huge worldwide fan base, but you can feel something's building, and you can feel there's trust, there's belief. Not just the fans, but the manager and the players and the manager. I don't know if anyone's read that Aaron Ramsdale article yesterday, and I definitely urge you to if you haven't. But you can just definitely feel that connections back in the club, and the Arsenal, we're really back, right? And so I'm really backing us to take that to the next level next season.
Definitely. So after all those high points, let's talk about Spurs. Where are they going to finish next season? Because they are not really having a good time of it, are they?
They're
a mess.
I would say where we're looking. So we're going to have Arsenal, Man City, either Liverpool, Newcastle, or Man United in those positions. Aston Villa obviously doing really well under him. Maybe 7th. Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City. Oh, Chelsea even better. Yeah, Chelsea are going to be back, aren't they? Let's go with 9th. Why not? There's always going to be a wild card, isn't there? There's going to be a Brentford or a Fulham or someone who are going to be in there. So let's go 9th. I think with them, obviously, Kane, the saga continues, which is hilarious. They've added Maddison, but I mean, we've really smacked them left, right, and centre in this transfer window, right? And we smacked Bayern Munich around for the first time. But I think the new keeper, I don't think he's had a particularly good start to the not that I try and tend to base my objective on pre-season, but I can't see them really challenging next season.
How about the FA Cup? Are you going to give that to?
Arsenal. We're definitely going for the double. We're going for the domestic double.
Yeah.
The winners of the English World Cup. That'll be us.
Well, there's been quite a few people that have put us down for the double, so you're not alone there.
Taboo.
Yeah. That time they were singing that against Spurs, and they come over the Tannoy Hybrid and asked us to stop singing it.
I actually, so I met Sol Campbell once. He came to my office. We were doing we had an event, a diversity and inclusion event, and Sol Campbell came as like an ambassador and gave a talk for an hour to like my employees. And it was actually really interesting, the stuff he was saying about, you know, the likes of, he went into some pretty raw details about the likes of Roy Keane and, you know, his desire to move to AC Milan, why he chose Arsenal. But I actually got him to sign an old Arsenal shirt with the words double, double, double. Sol Campbell was signed the double. And a little interesting fact, my copy of Fever Pitch is signed by two people. One of those is Sol Campbell. Do you know who the second one is?
Well, you haven't picked someone who was part of the Fever Pitch era, so no. I'm going to say Mark Strong.
Mikel Arteta.
Does he even know what it is?
I'm sure he does. He was club captain, so there was some like thing they were doing like in pre-season. They did like a training session at the Emirates, and I managed. I think because I was part of the AST, and like Tim Payton just said, if you want to come along, feel free. So I took a day off work, and then they did like some event afterwards in the concourse. And they had like Zelalem, if you remember him. He was in a little chat. That's when they asked Aaron Ramsey, what do you think of Tottenham? And he said fifth. And then like you could go to the players and like have a chat with them after. And like, so everyone gravitated towards like Ramsey, Wilshere, and like barely anyone went over to Arteta. So I was like, okay, I'll go have a little chat with him. He signed my copy, had a little talk. Yeah, it was amazing. Going back like not at least 10 years now, but maybe like going back like 8 years or something like that, 9 years. Really nice guy.
If I met Arteta, I'd ask him about what it's like to play next to Ronaldinho at PSG. I'd get all hipster on his ass, and then I bet not many people often ask him about that.
He was a legend, though.
Yes. League Cup, what are you going to go there?
I'll go Newcastle. Ooh, Aston Villa's an interesting one, but no, I'm going to go Newcastle.
Yeah.
I think they'll go hell for leather on that one.
Yes, Champions League winner. This is where we test if you've actually lost the plot. If you're going to pick Arsenal to do the domestic double and the Champions League, look at that smile. That means you've thought about it. Have you done it?
I mean, it really depends on what happens with Mbappe, right? You've got Real Madrid down, and I can see the logic why some people have gone for Real Madrid. But if they haven't got Mbappe, for me, it's got to be Arsenal. I think we're going to smack Bayern Munich. We're going to get our revenge. We've already embarrassed them in the transfer window. They've gone in for Timber. We've got him. They've gone in for Havertz. We've got him. They went in for Rice. We got him. They were also trying to compete with us for Raya, and it looks like we're going to get him. I think this is it. We're going to ding them 5-1 at the Allianz. Going to bring them back to the Emirates. We're just going to waste time, and we'll have no doubt the English fans singing "It's Coming Home," just like they sing to us in perfect English. And then it'll be us and Madrid in the final. And yeah, it really depends what's happening with Mbappe. But if he's not there, for me, it's got to be Arsenal.
Oh, I love it. So a player playing in the Premier League, top goal scorer, but all competitions, including Europe. Who are you picking? Everyone's gone Haaland, apart from one has gone Martinelli, one Ødegaard, one Rashford, and Nkunku from a blogger. But you know what bloggers are like. They're often
hipster. Rashford's an interesting one. I think I think it's got to be Haaland. I can't see it being otherwise, unfortunately.
Yeah, very true. The Championship. Do you care about that? Will you be watching any of it next season? Because it is a very competitive league.
Yeah. So, funnily enough, one of my best friends, is a big Borough man. And he's kind of infiltrated, as I can see, a few people have gone for Borough. Obviously, Michael Carrick last year was pretty transformational. When he took over, was it like October, November? And I think, with he hasn't really done much in the transfer window. They bought some keeper for a couple of million. I think their biggest issue is going to be, can they keep hold of Chuba Akpom? And whether or not there's a bit of a contract saga there. I saw like some sports Twitter account tweeted out the other day that he was being very difficult and trying to get more money than Borough can afford, and he kind of like responded to it just like with a one-word denial, which for me means he's definitely trying to get more money than they can afford. But yeah, I think Carrick has brought so I watched a few of their games last season, like pretty decent football. Borough have always played Well, no, they go through cycles, right? Under Tony Mowbray, they used to play some pretty good football, and then they really fell off a cliff with what was the ex-Sheffield United guy. But like, I think they look solid. That said, obviously, the team's coming down. I think Leicester have spent like 20 million of some of the money they've made. Leeds and Southampton, by and large, are pretty good squads, but they're still in that transition. So I'm gonna go for Middlesbrough. Why not?
Okie dokie. Now the fun part: who's going to be the first Premier League manager to be fired?
Moyes, for sure. I
He's
saw an amazing story today that apparently they're struggling to find players, and they've like put out West Ham. That guy West Ham Central who like everyone was on his coattails during the old Declan Rice saga, and we're waiting for him. We're waiting with like on tenterhooks for him to put an update on when
the insider.
Yeah, and apparently he put today that like West Ham have actually advertised the fact that they want to buy players in like 6 or 7 positions on some blog or something, some transfer blog. Like West Ham are fit, like obviously the Dildo brothers don't know what they're doing again. But and then like someone responded and they were like, yeah, El Neni, Lakonga, Tavares, like Turner, and like literally filled every position. But obviously, it wouldn't be a bad thing if they went and bought Balogun, because they're probably they've got obviously some pretty good payments, as we know they're pretty chuffed with, right? And they've got money to spend, so we can sell a few players to them. Moyes is going to be under pressure to bring players in this window, right? Otherwise, they spent so much time haggling with us over the payments. They've lost out on Harvey Barnes. They're putting in gimmick bids for Maguire. I'm not Maguire's biggest fan. 20 million, right? And after all the nonsense that they were chatting about the embarrassing bids we were putting in for Declan Rice, you just got to think, they've generated so much money. There's going to be a bit more expectation as well, because obviously it's a double-edged sword when you win that European Coca-Cola Cup, right? Because they've had a relegation battle, which kind of brings everybody's expectations down. But then they've gone and won some random no-mark competition. So now everybody in West Ham thinks they're like the biggest club in London because they've won some European trophy that we've never won. And apparently they all think they're going to be top 4. And so I think that the expectations are now so inflated. And the reality is they've had such a terrible window. They've lost their best player, who basically, Rice carried them last season in that second half of the season. I think it's got disaster written all over it.
And plus, the trend at the moment is to play for young, fresh, enthusiastic young managers with new tactics and new ideas. And he's a dinosaur. And he's a dinosaur that hasn't really done much in the game. And it's not really going to encourage any young players to go, I want to go and play for him. They want to play for the likes of Pep or Arteta or some of those other ones around the league that are doing really good stuff. So, I can see that. I mean, I went for Postecoglou at Spurs just because I hate them. We've only had one person go for Pochettino, and that was Gav, because Gav's just still bitter about the 1980s. So
I did think Pochettino, but even Chelsea can't be that mad. As you see today, apparently, I saw some news that Chelsea have gone back to, they're owned by a hedge fund or private equity firm called Clearwater. Apparently, they've gone back to them saying they need additional and more financial resources this window than they're being given. And you're just like, maybe they're going to try and put in a bid for Mbappe. Who knows? But it's going to be. I think next season, I'm super pumped for it. I think last season came a little bit out of nowhere in the sense that we were really deflated when we finished 5th. A couple of seasons ago, and it all fell apart at Newcastle and Spurs away, and we came so close. And going into last season, obviously that pre-season was really good, but the first 10 games we were like, wow, we're top of the league, and it was a real shock. Whereas now I think we've set a bit of a benchmark for ourselves, but it's risen the expectation, not just from the fans and the pundits and the media, but actually the players themselves. I think they believe in themselves that this is where we belong to be, right? And I think Arteta's really created that mentality. I think driving out some of not just the deadwood that we had, but the deadwood attitude that we had in the club. Players who were happy to come in and coast on their 100k salaries or 350k salaries in some cases, and really, not care whether or not they succeed. Whereas now he's got a younger team, a hungry team who genuinely believe in themselves. And there was a great quote coming back to that Aaron Ramsdale, which again, please go away and read the article, when he said, he was arguing with Arteta, not arguing, but he was debating with Arteta in training because Arteta was saying, play further forward, play further higher up the pitch, more aggressive. And he was like saying to Arteta, I'm basically playing on like the halfway line. Like, what do you want? And so Arteta started showing him some videos of what he like expected, showing him videos of goalkeepers. And Ramsdale said he was showing him videos of vintage Barcelona, saying, this is what I want. And he's like, shit, boss, you want us to be vintage Barcelona? And he's like, yeah, that's what I want. So, but, the players buy into it, the fans buy into it. I think we've set a benchmark for ourselves, but it's not just, it's genuinely he's brought us up a level and it's good. And I think, sure, if we don't win the league, we'll be there or thereabouts. Liverpool obviously looking much better. I'm sure Chelsea will be, but you've got to back yourself in these situations.
You do, and it's the most excited I've been for a new season since the season after the Invincibles, and that says quite a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah. So who did you go for the Champions League?
Arsenal, because off my trolley. I put Arsenal for the Premier League and the Champions League, Newcastle, FA Cup, Villa, League Cup.
You didn't put us down for the FA Cup. Where's your belief?
My belief is 64 games next season to win every single trophy. It's going to be a lot of it depends on our draw in the Champions League group stages and how there, because we know that European teams are all now skint. None of them have got any money. And you look at that Barcelona side we played in the pre-season friendly, half of that team were free transfers. The days where Barcelona's first team is littered with 80, 90, 100 million pound players and world stars, they're gone. They haven't got the money. And one of their big sponsors just pulled out. And that's going to be even more money they don't have, and they're absolutely knackered. And it's great to see. And there's only a certain amount. I mean, you've talked so many times over the last decade about how Real Madrid and Barcelona are funded by the government and buying the training ground and dodgy long-term deals and bank loans that go on and on because they are a national institution. Those two clubs, where they get the kind of financial backing from the banks that we would never get in this country because it wouldn't be allowed. But financial shenanigans going on over there to keep getting away with it. We've seen Serie A have been bankrupt for years. They don't have any money.
Well, that's
no other leagues.
The quality in that semi-final between AC Milan and Inter Milan was. I love Italian football and I love Italian culture.
Yeah, but Inter Milan's my side, and it was just painful.
Exactly, and obviously Inter did well getting to the final, but I would back Arsenal to take on any Italian team in a final. Yeah. On a one-off game, I'd back Arsenal against pretty much any team at the moment. I mean, obviously Bayern are going to be strong. Obviously, PSG, there's going to be a lot of disruption. What happens with Mbappe, right? And they've got players in another. I think Ugarte would be a good signing for them. Real Madrid losing Benzema is huge, right? And fundamentally, that is huge. To their game, because even if they bring in Mbappe's a different player to Benzema. Benzema was really the fulcrum of that attack, and everything they built was around him and the way he brought other players in. He kind of had that knack of being able to bring in everyone around him and drop deeper a little bit, like not a false nine, obviously, but drop deep to bring people in. But he was still like the centre. He was the out and out number 9. So I think that's massive. Yes, I think obviously clearly they're better than Arsenal, and over the course of if they played each other, 10 times, Real Madrid would come out tops. But I think we've got sufficient quality, but as you said, it's literally how we turn up on the night, and we do, because we haven't been in the Champions League for so long, we probably lack a little bit of that mentality and that experience, playing in some of those European games that the style's a little bit different, as we know, right? So, but listen, I've got huge amounts of confidence in us going into next season, and I'm sure I'll look completely stupid when you do your season wrap up and rewind and you go back and actually it turned out that some blogger was completely right, but I think we should be confident.
If things don't go right for us next season, I just expect you to pay a lawyer to have all of that black pen redacted, like in some kind of UFO reveal documents that we're always seeing, where everything's all nicely redacted. And there are Fyffey, he hasn't predicted anything. Oh, that's a shame.
Men in black.
There you go. Anyway, it's lovely to have you back on again. So we've done 35 minutes. I think we could have done another hour easily if we'd have talked about upcoming stuff and more players and tactics and things like that. That's what you're going to have to do, Mr. Fyffey, is come back sometime in the season and have a chat with us during a proper podcast. What do you reckon?
Well, now that I'm a father and have fatherly responsibilities, my Thursday drinking has been curtailed. So I'll be more than delighted to get a couple of hours into the spare room and away from all the shenanigans inside the house. So yeah, I very much accept your cordial invite, Mr. Sweetman. And also thank you to all the guests. I had no idea there were so many committed, dedicated, lovely guests here on a Friday afternoon in London. So thanks for dialing in, everybody. And I'll see you guys soon later on in the season.
Right, you stay there. I'm going to do the end of the show outro, and you'll be able to hear Steve and Dave talking because I've made an outro with those in it. So, people, we will be back. If I got the thing up, wouldn't it? Because I don't know who's up next. The next one is going to be. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. That's yesterday's ones. I had to cancel. Talking of ABW royalty legend, it's only Mr. FK coming up at 5 o'clock. That's going to be a good one. Oh, so wave goodbye to the boys and girls, Mr. Fyffey, and I will play the outro.
Say hi to FK for me.
I will.
As soon as I scored that goal, I was fucking livid. Get down, dog. Splendid business.
You nearly caught the bloody thing. What are you talking about?
So I was just eating a full quiche. Well, you don't often see them at Ibs, so when you see them in the supermarket, they need to be swagged, microwaved immediately, and get the brown sauce on and bosh, Bob's your uncle.